Claude Code just hit 83% on SWE Bench Pro, while GitHub Copilot's Pro plan runs $10 a month. That gap decides real money if you're running a team of 5 devs. Both tools got a major push in 2025 and 2026, so I'm putting Claude Code against GitHub Copilot through 5 head-to-head tests to see who actually wins. And the part that surprised me most is that the cheaper tool might be the smarter buy for most developers. But the answer flips completely depending on one specific workflow. My name is Brian, and I'm in these tools 12 hours a day, so you don't have to be. And every number here is traced back to official pricing pages, model cards, and benchmark trackers both companies actually publish. This one's for any dev or team deciding between a deep autonomous agent and a low-friction copilot that's already everywhere you work. Test 1 is cost, and the concrete situation is pretty simple. You're a solo dev, you want AI coding help, and you pull up the pricing page for both tools. Claude Code starts at $20 a month with no free tier at all, and GitHub Copilot starts at $0, which is not a small gap when you're already watching your monthly spend across 5 or 6 different SaaS tools. I looked at every plan side by side, and here's what I got. Copilot Pro is $10 a month. Claude Code Pro is $20, and at the power user level, they both hit $100 a month, but Claude Code can run up to $200 on the max 20x plan. Copilot is the only one offering a genuinely free tier, 2,000 completions a month at $0, though Claude Code's flat rate plans are more predictable for heavy users, so it's not a clean sweep. GitHub Copilot takes cost, and it's not subtle. Free entry, half the pro price, lower ceiling at scale. Claude Code's flat rate model makes things more predictable, but the free tier alone tips it, and that puts GitHub Copilot up 1-0 on the scoreboard. Test 2 is coding benchmark performance, and the number itself is the opener, 83%, which is Claude Code with Opus 5.0 on SWE Bench Pro, a 350-task gauntlet of real software engineering problems. If your agent can't solve the hard stuff, you're still the one writing tricky code at midnight, and the tool you paid for is basically autocomplete with extra steps. What surprised me here is how wide the gap looks on paper. Claude Code with Opus 5.0 hits 83% on SWE Bench Pro, and GitHub Copilot's published figure is 56% on SWE Bench. I want to be straight with you though. These are different benchmarks, so treat the gap as directional rather than exact. And 83 versus 56 is a big directional signal either way. Plus, Claude Code has the only published SWE Bench Pro number in this whole comparison. Claude Code takes coding benchmark performance because 83% on SWE Bench Pro is the strongest published coding number in this whole matchup. And Copilot being a mature product made me think it'd be closer, but the raw agent capability gap is real. So that ties the scoreboard at 1 apiece, and the next 3 tests decide everything. Test 3 is speed, and the objection I hear all the time is that a smarter agent doesn't matter if it's too slow to fit into your actual workflow. A senior dev waiting 2 minutes per iteration loses more time than the agent saves, so speed is the thing that turns a great benchmark number into a tool you actually keep open all day. I couldn't find a clean apples-to-apples comparison here. Claude Code has a fast mode that makes Opus up to 2.5 times faster, but it costs twice the tokens to run, and GitHub Copilot completes benchmark tasks about 30% faster than Cursor, which is a totally different axis. These are speed claims on completely different setups, so I can't call a winner from this data. Speed is a tie, both companies are measuring on totally different things, so there's no fair call, and the scoreboard stays 1-1 with one tied, which means the last 2 tests carry all the weight. Alright, so we've got context, window size, and deployment reach still ahead. And these 2 tests could completely change which tool makes sense for your setup, because if you work across multiple IDEs, or you're dealing with massive codebases, the next results are the ones that actually flip the decision. And the deployment test in particular is a lot more interesting than it sounds. Test 4 is context and output limits. 1 million tokens, that's Claude Code's context window on paid plans with Opus or Sonnet 5. And that number matters the second your codebase gets big, because if your agent can only see a small slice of your repo at once, it starts making changes that break things 3 files away, and you spend the next hour debugging a problem the tool created. I looked at what both companies actually publish here, and the data is pretty one-sided. Claude Code has a clearly stated 200K token context window on all plans and up to 1M tokens on paid plans with usage credits. But for GitHub Copilot, I couldn't find a published context limit figure anywhere, and that's not me calling it bad. It just means the data isn't there to compare. Context limits is another tie, but only because the data is incomplete. GitHub Copilot doesn't put a number out there, so I can't give Claude Code the point even though it's the only tool with a real published figure. And the scoreboard stays at 1-to-1, with 2 tied going into the final test. Test 5 is deployment and modality, and the day your AI coding tool doesn't work in the IDE your team standardized on is the day you lose half a day switching configs, or convincing everyone to change their setup. If a tool covers 8 surfaces but misses the one your team actually uses, that broad coverage number means nothing to you personally. So both tools cover 8 or more surfaces, which is pretty interesting, but the philosophies are totally different. Claude Code is terminal first and runs tens to hundreds of parallel subagents for deep multi-file work, while GitHub Copilot is IDE first and supports more editors out of the box: VS Code, Visual Studio, Xcode, JetBrains, NeoVim, Eclipse. Copilot wins on IDE breadth, Claude Code wins on agent depth, and those are genuinely different things. Deployment and modality is a tie. I went in thinking Copilot would run away with this one on IDE coverage, and it does win that subdimension, but Claude Code's parallel subagent orchestration is a real counterweight. Both cover 8+ surfaces with different strengths, and the final scoreboard lands at 1-to-1 with 3 tied, which means the conditional verdict is the whole game. Okay, so here's where Claude Code is clearly better. It hits 83% on SWE Bench Pro, the strongest published coding benchmark in this comparison. It has a 1M token context window on paid plans, so it can hold a massive codebase in one pass, and it runs tens to hundreds of parallel subagents for complex multi-file refactors, plus full GitHub and GitLab automation from the terminal. And here's where GitHub Copilot clearly beats Claude Code. It has a free tier, 2,000 completions at $0 a month. Pro is $10 a month, which is half what Claude Code charges. It supports more IDEs out of the box, including VS Code, Visual Studio, Xcode, JetBrains, NeoVim, Eclipse, and its agentic setup cuts token use 35% compared to single prompt workflows, which matters at scale. So the overall result is honestly closer than I expected, given that 83% SWE Bench Pro number. If you need an agent that plans, refactors, and ships full features across a big codebase, Claude Code is the pick. But if you want something at $10 a month that works in every IDE you already use, Copilot is the smarter default, and I mean that literally. $10 a month, that's the decision. If you want to see how Claude Code holds up against a free local option, I ran that exact matchup. And the results were pretty interesting, so check out Alama versus Claude Code. Can free local keep up? It's right there on the channel, and it answers a question a lot of you are probably already thinking about.